The Three Questions by Leo Tolstoy. Leo Tolstoy was a Russian writer regarded as one of the greatest authors of all time. What is a parable? A parable is a short story with a moral lesson. The Three Questions is a parable told by Leo Tolstoy. It tells us about a king who wants to find the answers to three important questions. Now, my dear students, listen attentively to the story. Once a certain king had an idea. If he always knew the right time to begin everything, if he knew who were the right people to listen to and who to avoid, and the most important thing to do, he would never fail in anything that he would undertake. And above all, if he always knew what was the most important undertaking. Since he was convinced that he was right in thinking this way, he had a proclamation made in his kingdom. He would give a great reward to anyone who would teach him what the right time was for every action, who the most necessary people were, and how he might know the most important thing to do. Many learned people came to the court, but they all gave different answers. In reply to the first question, some said that to know the right time for every action, one must draw up in advance a table of days, months, and years, and one must live strictly according to it. Others declared that it was impossible to decide beforehand the right time for every action, but that, not letting oneself be absorbed in idle pastimes, one should always attend to all that was going on, and then do that which was most essential. Yet others said that it was impossible for one man to decide correctly the right time for every action, and that the king should instead have a council of wise people who would help him to fix the proper time for everything. So you see, my dear students, the passage that we just read tells us that the king had a problem and he wanted someone from his kingdom to give him answers to three questions. The first question was, what was the right time to begin everything? The second question of the king was, who are the right people to listen to? And the third question, what was the most important thing to do? In order to find a solution to these three questions, the king made a proclamation in his kingdom. He also announced a great reward to anyone who would give him the answers to the above three questions. Now there were different people who gave different responses to the first question of the king. Some people said that one must draw up in advance a table of days, months, and years and live strictly by it. Some said one should always attend to all that is going on and then do what is most essential. And some said it was impossible for one man to decide correctly the right time for every action, so have a council of wise people. And therefore they decided to have a council, a meeting when many people would be assembled and they would give their opinions to the answer for the first question. Okay, my dear students, in the passage that I just read, we have come across many new words. So on the screen, what you see right now are the words and their meanings. You are expected to pause the video and copy down the glossary given to you on the screen. Kindly copy these words and their meanings in your notebooks. Let us now focus our attention on the next passage. Equally varied were the answers to the second question. Some said the people the king most needed were his counselors. Others said the priest. Others the doctors, while some said the warriors were the most necessary. To the third question about what was the most important occupation, some replied that the most important thing in the world was science. Others said it was skill in warfare, and others again that it was religious worship. The king was convinced by none of these answers and gave the reward to none. He decided instead to go to a hermit who was widely renowned for his wisdom. The hermit lived in a small hut in a forest which he never left. He spoke only to common folk. So the king put on simple clothes and, approaching the hermit's cell, dismounted his horse and left his bodyguard behind. When the king arrived, the hermit was digging the ground in front of his hut. He greeted the king but went on digging. The hermit was frail and weak, and each time he struck the ground with the spade and turned over a little earth, he breathed heavily. The king went up to him and said, "I have come to you, wise hermit, to ask you to answer 3 questions. How can I learn to do the right thing at the right time? Who are the people I most need, and to whom should I therefore pay most attention? And what are the affairs that are most important and need my first attention?" Kindly note, my dear students, the glossary, that is the words and their meanings for the passage that I have just read. You will copy down these words and their meanings in your notebook. Let us now focus our attention on the next passage. The hermit listened to the king but said nothing. He just spat on his hand and resumed digging. The king watched in silence for a while. Then, feeling sorry for the hermit, he said, "You are tired. Let me take the spade and work a while for you." The hermit silently handed over the spade and sat down on the ground. When he had dug 2 beds, the king stopped and repeated his questions. The hermit again gave no answer, but rose, stretched out his hand for the spade, and said, "Now rest a while and let me work a bit." But the king did not give him the spade and continued to dig. 1 hour passed and another. The sun began to sink behind the trees, and the king at last stuck the spade into the ground and said, "I came to you, wise one, for an answer to my questions. If you can give me none, please say so, and I will go home." "Here comes someone running," said the hermit. "Let us see who it is." The king turned round and saw a bearded man come running out of the forest. The man held his hands pressed against his stomach, and blood was flowing from under them. When he reached the king, he fainted and fell to the ground, moaning feebly. The king and the hermit unfastened the man's clothing. There was a large wound in his stomach. The king washed it as well as he could and bandaged it with his handkerchief and a towel the hermit had. But the blood would not stop flowing, And the king again and again removed the bandage, soaked with warm blood, and washed and rebandaged the wound. When at last the blood stopped flowing, the man revived and asked for something to drink. The king brought some fresh water and gave it to him. Once again, my dear students, we come across new vocabulary in the passage that I just read. You are expected to write down these words and their meanings in your notebooks. Let us focus our attention on the next passage. Meanwhile, the sun had set and it had become cool. So the king, with the hermit's help, carried the wounded man into the hut. The man lay there quietly with his eyes closed. By now, the king was so tired after his walk and the work he had done that he lay down himself and also fell asleep. When he awoke in the morning, it took him some time to remember where he was and who was the strange bearded man lying by his side and gazing intently at him. "Forgive me," said the bearded man in a weak voice when he saw that the king was awake and was looking at him. "I do not know you, and have nothing to forgive you for," said the king. "You do not know me, but I know you. I am that enemy of yours who swore to revenge himself on you because you executed his brother and seized his property. I knew you had gone alone to see the hermit, and I resolved to kill you on your way back. But the day passed and you did not return, so I came out of my ambush to find you. Your bodyguards recognized me and wounded me. I escaped from them, but would have bled to death had you not dressed my wound. I wished to kill you, but you have saved my life. Now if I live, and if you wish it, I'll serve you all my life." Kindly note, my dear students, I have put up 3 questions along with the answers. You are expected to write them down in your notebook. The king was very glad to have made peace with an enemy so easily and to have gained him for a friend. He not only forgave him, but said he would send his men and his own physician to attend to him. The king then took leave of him and went out of the hut to look for the hermit. Before going away, he wished once more to beg for an answer to the questions he had asked. The hermit was outside on his knees, sowing seeds in the beds that had been dug the day before. The king approached him and said, "For the last time, I pray you to answer my questions, wise man." "You have already been answered," said the hermit, still crouching on his thin legs and looking up at the king who stood before him. "What do you mean?" asked the king. "Do you not see?" replied the hermit. "If you'd not pitied my weakness yesterday and stayed to dig these beds for me, you would have gone back and been killed by that man." So the most important time was when you were digging the beds, and I was the most important man, and to do me good was your most important business. Afterwards, the most important time was when you were attending to that man, for if you'd not bound his wounds, he would have died without having made peace with you. So he was the most important man, and what you did for him was the most important business. Remember then, there is only one time that is important: now. It is the most important time because it's the only time when we have any power. The most necessary person is the one with whom you are, for you do not know whether you will ever have dealings with anyone else. And the most important thing is to do this person good, because for that purpose alone were you sent into this life. So you see, my dear students, I think the hermit somehow knew everything before the king arrived. He must have known about the plan of the king's enemy, and so was able to deal with it purposefully when the king arrived. News about the ambush must have definitely come to his ears. Otherwise, he would not have been able to answer the king's questions in such a real and practical way. He was a hermit, a wise man, and nothing of importance would have escaped his consideration. The king finally got the answers to his questions. The most important time was when the king was digging the beds and when he was attending to the wounded man. Otherwise, he would have not met the man and the man would have died. The most important action was binding the man's wounds. If the man had died, he would have not made peace with the king. And the most important man was the hermit, who made it possible for the king to find the answers to his 3 questions. By saving the life of the wounded man, who was in fact his enemy, we get the message that the most important thing in life is to do good to others, because it is for that purpose alone that we were sent into this life. Let us take a look now at the grammar section of this lesson. We will do the topic collocations. Collocations are 2 or more words that often go together or are often used together. They are just 2 words that are often used together. For example, stray dog, rainy day, weekly bazaar, hard work, hot blood, etc. They could be any 2 words that go together. If I say stupid fool, cunning fox, these kind of words which are used together are called collocations. We have a lot of collocations in the text, some of which I have written down. You will have to find the others. Right time, most important, simple clothes, frail and weak, breathed heavily, widely renowned, mourning feebly, warm blood, eyes closed, gazing intently, fell asleep, made peace, took leave, and many more are there in the text. You will have to find out another 5 collocations from the text and note them down along with these in your notebook. So kindly make sure the collocation notes should be copied down in your notebooks. Okay, we have now before us compound words, and you will notice that I have taken compound words immediately after the topic collocations, because I want you to see the difference between these 2 topics. Collocations are words that are used together. 2 words that are normally used together are called collocations, as in what we just did. But compound words, when 2 words are combined to form or to make a new word, it is called a compound word. Keep that in mind. Collocations are words that are used together. There is no new word being formed when we make collocations. But compound words are those words when 2 or more words are combined to form or make a new word. So when a new word is formed with the combination of 2 words, it is called a compound word. For example, you can see here example number 1, in and side equals inside. Now in is a word and side is a word, but when I use them together, it makes a third word, a new word, inside. Similarly, second one, carry and over. Carry and over gives you carry over. Carry over the marks or carry over something. Okay, so carry over forms a new word. That's a compound word. And the third one is to and fold. To is a word and fold is a word, but when I use them together, it forms a compound word, twofold. I was blessed twofold or threefolds. Okay, so twofold is another compound word. Now what you can see in these three examples, in and side together formed inside. There is no gap, there is no hyphen, there is no space between the two words. They have become one word, inside. So that is closed compound word. Carry and over. Carry over. You can see there's a space between carry and over, yet forming a new word. So there's a space between them, that is open compound word. And the third one, you see a hyphen in between them. To and fold made twofold. So you see that there is a hyphen between to and fold. So in that case, you can see that there are three types of compound words. There are three different types of compound words: closed form, open form, and hyphenated form. Let's take a look at them in detail. We'll quickly run through now the three kinds of compound words: closed compound words, open compound words, and hyphenated compound words. The first one, closed compound words. Closed compound words are formed when two fully independent, unique words are combined to create a new word. For example, you would combine grand and mother to create the closed form of a compound word, grandmother. So you see, grand and mother are two different words, and when we use them together, we form a new word, that is grandmother. There is no space between the word grandmother when we write it. There is no hyphen, and therefore it is called closed compound word. In a sentence, this would look like, my grandmother is coming over. So you can see how we have written the word grand and mother. We use it as a new word, grandmother. Grandmother, nani, dadi. Okay, so we have formed a new word from mother, and a new word by using grand and mother together, we have formed a new word, grandmother. And this word grandmother is a closed compound word. There is no hyphen, that is a dash, or there is no space between the two of them. These are the most common types of closed compound words, which I'll just read: sunflower, moonlight, basketball, graveyard, etc. So the most commonly used compound words are some of these kinds which I just read: sunflower, moonlight, basketball, football, graveyard, and so on. Okay? Coming to the next one, open compound words. Open compound words are formed when two words remain separate but are used together to create a new idea with a specific meaning. Again, it's the same thing, it's the same concept. Two words used to form the third word, a new word. But in this case, you will see that the new word which is formed has got a space between the two of them. For example, attorney and general are used to form the open compound word, attorney general. You could see this in the sentence: the Attorney General holds the power in legal matters. Other examples of open compound words include high school, ice cream, hot dog, full moon, etc. So when I say high school, just like how we said grandmother, grandmother is written together. So that's a closed compound word. But when I say high school, I will not write high school together. There will always be a space between the word high and school to form the new compound word, high school. So high school is the compound word, and such kind of compound words are written with the space between two words. Ice cream, you don't put a dash or a hyphen between the word ice and cream. Neither would you write ice cream together. Ice cream is a open compound word, and hence it is written ice separate and cream separate. Hot dog, we all know what's a hot dog. Okay, so hot dog is another open compound word where the two words are written separately. Full moon. Okay, let's take the third one, hyphenated compound words. Hyphenated compound words are formed when two separate words are joined together by a hyphen. A hyphen is a dash. For example, you can see twofold, check-in, merry-go-round, father-in-law, etc. So basically, you can see that a new word, two is a word and fold is a word. But when I bring them together, it forms a new word, twofold. And this new word is a compound word. But which kind of a compound word? A hyphenated compound word. Hyphenated means a word used with a hyphen. What is a hyphen? A hyphen is the dash that we write between the two words. So, what are compound words? Let's take it once again. Compound words are those words when we join two words or two or more words together to form a new word. That means a new word is formed when we join two words. And such new words which are formed are called compound words. Compound words are of three kinds. Closed compound words where there is no space between the two words, open compound words where there is a space between the two words, and hyphenated compound words where we use the hyphen between the two words.